The art of cross-cultural communication is knowing both cultures well enough that you can express one to the other and the other to the one.
Welcome to the AsiaLink podcast. I'm your host, Jim Gourlay. AsiaLink exists to share the gospel of Christ with the unreached of Asia. We do this by supporting, training and encouraging Asian believers to share the gospel within their own cultures. This is episode 15. In this episode, I'm talking to Graham Orr, who was a missionary in Japan for 20 years. He tells us about the challenges of cross-cultural mission.
Whether we go to Japan or a Japanese person comes here, the first stage is always, oh, this is amazing. When I first went to Japan in the late 80s, I was just like, ooh, this is exciting. When Japanese come to Dublin, where I worked 5 years with Japanese, they was, oh, this is great. And then after about 6 months, it's like, or a year, it's like, whoa, why do they do that? Or hang on a minute, that's not how we do it. I mean, my way is best. And the second stage is feeling that naturally the way you do things is right. The third kind of stage is total confusion. You lose any understanding of why people do anything. And it's at that point that you really start to learn. You begin the fourth stage, you understand that these people do this and I do that, and it's different, not wrong, because you've set your own cultural values slightly on the side. And then as you go deeper into the culture, you understand why people do what they do. At that point, you've gone a step deeper. The next step is for you to then embrace the values of the culture you've gone to. And then you begin to do things that they do for the reasons they do it. And the last stage is being completely comfortable on either side. And there's not many non-Japanese who get to that point in Japan. I mean, many will adequately navigate the culture after 5 to 10 years. But to be equally at home dealing with Japanese the way Japanese deal with Japanese and then come is fairly rare. I mean, I was in Japan 20 years. Only the second 10 that I really got into that sort of mode. And that was after a lot of very, very hard work for 10 years. I mean, I'm working in Japanese 9 till 5 with a group of Japanese. I'm the only foreigner for 10 years. So you are getting a lot of experience. But on top of that, it's constant understanding, thinking, analyzing, reflecting, changing, adapting, reading, learning. You do not get off this. And if you put your 10,000 hours in, after 5, 8, 10 years, you begin to get a feel for it. I mean, it is a long haul in Japan. It's not, if I went to France or Spain or Italy or Germany, in 2 years, I would have come across most of the spoken language I need. And because it's a very similar structural language to English, I'd be fairly fluent in 2 years. In Japan, after 2 years, you haven't come across 70% of the language yet. You've only got a little bit. You need to be there 10 years to even have encountered the language, never mind being able to speak the thing. It is a very long haul. It's one of the 3, 4, 5 most difficult languages in the world for an English speaker to learn for a number of reasons. But it is the one that takes the longest because, unlike most languages, the deeper you want to get into it, the longer it takes. Most languages, the early stages are hard and the latter stages are easy. In Japanese, it's the other way around. First 10, 20% is not that difficult. But the deeper you go, the more nuances you have to be aware of. And the longer you're in the culture, the more others expect of you to know those nuances. And to go an extra 5%, an extra 10% deeper takes suddenly a lot more hours of intent learning to actually get that much further. And so a lot of people get a bit, but not so many get a lot, and very few get the whole way. It's a long learning process.
Well, that's fascinating. And that word nuance is, I think, a bit of a hook that a little thread I want to pull on, because is it fair to say that nuance and implicit things that are said or done, is that something of a key to Japanese culture, would you say, that there's a lot of implication, a lot of nuance? Or is that just true of any culture and we just don't realize it?
It is not very true of a direct Western culture. And it is very true of most other world cultures, but particularly true of Japan and a few others that are nuanced on steroids, if you like.
Yeah.
And it depends on, in chef terms, if you feed food to a 2-star Michelin chef, they will discern how much sugar or salt or sweet or sour or vinegary or whatever is in there at a level quite different from you and from me, because their palate is very discerning. In the West, we are generally not very discerning of nuance because our culture doesn't require it. In communication styles, for both of us as people who've spent a lot of time communicating with others, the responsibility is with the speaker to be clear. Hello, good morning. I'm going to tell you this. I am now telling you this. I have just told you this. Clarity, clarity, clarity. Many of us grew up on being told that's how to communicate. Well, it is in a Western culture where communication has to be direct and clear. Most cultures of the world don't communicate like that. Japan is a very indirect communication culture, and there's a spectrum in intercultural studies of how you communicate with people. Japanese language and culture is very indirect, where the responsibility for understanding is not on the speaker to be clear, but on the listener to comprehend. I preached the Revelation in the church in Japan that I was pastor of, and preaching the Revelation in your home language is fairly hard. Preaching it in Japanese was a nightmare. But we got through it. It took a year, and they were still talking about it 4 or 5 years on because they had thought very hard about what it all meant. I think actually the indirect picture language was more helpful because I didn't summarize and reduce things to bullet points, which Western direct people tend to want to do. You paint pictures and word pictures and nuances, and they actually loved it. It surprised me that they gained so much because they sat back and took in the whole context, the background, the pictures, the images, and I realized afterwards that's actually much more how the Japanese mind works. There's an exercise you can do with people. You show people a picture, and I've actually done this with a group in Dublin. The group was mostly European-based people, and there was a picture. You were given 1 minute to look at the picture and remember what was on the picture. And then the woman running the course said, "Okay, what did you see?" I actually kind of knew what was coming, so I just flipped and decided that I'd look at the picture as a Japanese would. She said, "What did you see?" And all the European-based people said, "Oh, we saw this, which all the bright things, clear things in the foreground. And I'd only seen all the things in the background. Because to Japanese, the things in the foreground are so obvious, there's no point in looking at them. Everything about interpretation is the background. What anything means is determined by the background, the context, the shapes, the textures, the colors. What's behind is actually what's important." Which was quite funny at the time because they'd literally, none of the others had seen anything that I'd seen. There was no crossover.
Wow. You know what I'm thinking of at the moment? I'm thinking of that famous painting, which you'll know the name of and the artist, of the tsunami wave. It's the most famous bit of art from Japan that Westerners know. In terms of art appreciation, I should be not looking at the wave at the front. I should be looking at anything else that's in the picture.
Yes, it's done by... so much of art is apart from the super realist movement, it is appreciating what is implied. It's very subtle. You know, I can say my name is Graham, but there's 10 ways I can say that, depending on what nuance I want to give to the other person. What degree of respect do I want to show the other person? You know, are they older than me, or are they more experienced than me? Am I going to have a long-term relationship with them? How have they come to know about me? Yeah, depending on who they are, I can't even open my mouth without knowing how I stand in relationship to them, which is why Japanese always start a relationship by giving a business card. Because you see the card, you see the quality of the card, you see the company name on the card, you see the title of the person on the card, and you do the maths in your head to decide, in terms of vertical hierarchy, which in the West we don't like, but most countries in the world have a vertical hierarchy of some sort. Where do we stand? And therefore, how much respect do I have to show him? In the West, we tend to shake hands to say we're equal in this. And in Japan, you bow and you stand at a distance, a quite carefully mediated distance. And you show respect, because everything is about how above or below you that person is, and what I say, how I say it, what I do say, what I don't say, how I say it, how I don't say it, is all dependent upon the relationship you have with the other person.
And if I'm standing near to a Japanese person, presumably that if I'm standing that little bit further apart, that's showing more respect.
Yes. How close someone stands to somebody is a culturally moderated effect. If you and I would stand a particular distance apart, if I were, say, Italian, I would stand closer to you. And you, being British, would probably back off a bit because you'd feel threatened. If we were from the Middle East, likely to stand very, very close, because how you smell is very important, which can be unusual if you're not used to it. And if you're in a Japanese or similar culture, you would stand further back. And if you watch a room of people, ethnically different people, you see this play out. You see people getting too close and people backing off, and it's quite funny to watch once you see what's going on. So foreigners don't appreciate, non-Japanese don't appreciate that how far you stand from a Japanese person is very, very important. How you carry yourself. If you stand upright, you're arrogant. And so naturally in Japan, you hunch slightly and you shrink slightly. Even for me, though I'm only 5'4", I would never stand up to my full height. How you walk along the road, when you pass people, even people you don't know, you wouldn't lift your chin up and shoulders back. That would be quite arrogant. You would be deprecating in how you even walk along the road. In a shop, you would never walk in front of a person. If you had to walk in front of a person, within a few feet, across their eye line, if you were, then you would always bow and always make a hand gesture to say, I'm really sorry that I'm crossing your personal space. But when you get on a train that is very crowded, that rule doesn't apply.
Yeah. And that is an odd thing, isn't it, to the Westerner who might sort of look at Japan, have some sort of idea of all of this etiquette that's going on, the deference and the deference to their space and so on. And then all of that seems to go out the window. I don't think it does all go out the window, but there's a certain amount that presumably goes out of the window when you get on that crowded Tokyo train.
It's like any cultural rule. You have to know what the rule is before you know when it's acceptable culturally to break it. If you don't know what the rule is, you'll break it all the time. And if you're not culturally aware enough, you will break it at times you shouldn't.
And keep it when you should break it.
Yes. Yeah. On a train in Tokyo, you can be pressed up against other people. Everybody has the same mindset that they are still in their own personal space and all is fine. It's an acceptable situation. Expressing your own opinion is a rare thing, because in a group, you would only express an opinion that the group agrees with for the sake of maintaining group harmony and being a true, loyal member of the group. You would only express your opinion in ranking order. You would, if you were towards the bottom end of a ranked group, you wouldn't express your opinion until those above you have expressed their opinion, and you would express an opinion that agrees with the previous opinions. When can that rule be broken? The main thing is once you've had a drink. If you've gone off with your workmates, of which you are part of the group, and you go down to the pub or the bar after work and have a drink, you can then express your opinion fairly freely. And because it's culturally accepted that that is a place where you can do that after a drink, everybody lets off steam. And no one gets offended. And the following morning, when you walk back into work, all those opinions are forgotten.
Or at least they pretend that they're forgotten. Of course, we know that they're there, but we act publicly as if we've forgotten them.
Yes, because publicly you act as if things are all fine. So I think one of the issues for church is, what are we allowing here? How much personal opinion and how much emotion is it appropriate to express in a church context? And that differs between churches. If a church is Western run, there is generally more expression of emotion and more personal opinion being thrown around than in a Japanese run church. And that's quite hard to find the balance with, because you want Japanese believers to feel free to express how they feel as part of their discipleship journey.
I guess I'd be thinking at this point, in a church context, is there a place and a time where people can feel free to say, I'm allowed to express what I'm really thinking, and it's not going to upset the unity of the church, which is very good, noble goal.
Yes. And so I think one job as pastor is to structure, teach and train people to help them find that freedom without the feeling that they are causing other people discomfort. It's not as simple a thing as those of us who've grown up in a very individualistic, I can say anything I like because I'm just being myself culture would expect. It's slightly trickier than that and has to be handled carefully. It's only when Japanese feel safe in their own terms of feeling safe that they can then talk.
Tell us where people can find your blog, Graham, to explore this a bit more.
Yes, I write a blog called Go Deeper, trying to help people understand that reading the Bible is a cross-cultural activity. It's called Go Deeper on Substack.com.
Thank you for listening to the AsiaLink podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share with friends. If you like this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and join us again next time.